to get us started, while the last people are joining us, we're starting our panel discussion with my four beautiful guests here. Very, very, very natural and relaxed here. Yes. I wanted to say in the beginning of this panel here that user experience connects many different disciplines, and this is not an exhaustive or perfect list of them, but there are many things that you might have heard when it comes to game development. And we have someone now from game design, we have someone that has more of a marketing and content background, technical background. So there are many kinds of people working on user experience without having the user experience in their work title. So I'm going to start the panel now with these four wonderful individuals. And my name is Niina, as you already learned previously. My background is in art and user experience in games. And I would like to have you panelists now describe your background. What is it that you have been doing in games and where do you hail from? We have already kind of spoiled that, but please enlighten us further.
Should I start? Okay. So hello everyone. My name is Piparina. My game dev career first started almost a decade ago at Frozen Byte. I worked there as the marketing video producer for about 4 years. And so basically, I was making all kinds of trailers and marketing videos. So writing scripts for the videos, filming them in Engine, editing, recording voiceovers, writing social media posts and newsletters to go with the videos I'd made and things like that. And then after Frozen Byte, I switched from game dev to work in media. So I started working at Podimo when it had just started in Finland, which is like a podcast platform, subscription-based platform where we produce our own podcasts and also worked with production companies. And so I worked there as a video producer as well, making all kinds of marketing assets, and I was responsible for all of our marketing assets as well as the quality of the video podcasts and and since it was a very like small startup like environment, I was doing all kinds of other things as well that had to do with paid marketing and also organic social media. So basically, yeah, yeah, I was doing a lot of stuff there, and I saw Podimo grew from basically nothing to being the leading podcast platform for Finnish podcasts that it is today. But since game dev is where my true passions lie, last October I resigned from my position at Podimo in order to fully focus on a game that we've been developing together with a small team. So currently, I'm still working as a freelance video producer for Podimo, but most of my time I spent developing our own game, which is a mystery RPG set in the Finnish archipelago. And more on that to come later, since in a few months we should be ready to start posting more about it. But yeah, so I'm going to be focusing more on the marketing side of UX, since that's the area that I have the most experience in.
All right. Hello, everybody. Is it on? Okay. Maybe I'm just talking. I need to wake up a little bit. My daughter woke up 3 a.m. last night, so trying to. I need to wake up a little bit. But hi, everybody. My name is Colin. I am originally from the U.S. I have been living in Finland for 16 years. It's been amazing being here. My background is in game design, so I originally got my start in mobile games at Digital Chocolate. So this was a long time ago, 15 years ago now. And yeah, I worked at Rovio for 5 years doing product management, game design. I was game manager, yeah, did game design manager there. I worked on both live titles and then also some games from in early stage concepts. And then I got tired of corporate game development, as one does when working in game dev, I guess. And then decided that I would go and do a startup. So that was 3 years of my life, very enlightening years. A lot of things from if you have an opportunity to work in a startup, definitely would recommend doing that. And then I had a kid, and then decided maybe this life isn't so great for having a family, and then I went to work at Nitro Games. So my role now at Nitro Games is I'm creative director. So that means I oversee all of the projects that we have in the studio. So from a design perspective, and what that means in practice is that I start new projects. So I make RFPs, which are requests for proposals. So we get those from big companies like EA, Microsoft. They come in and they say, hey, we want you to make this project. And so then I lead the creative endeavor on that, build slides, and create the game design from scratch, and then make those proposals and give those to the companies. But now I'm actually working on one project that we've successfully pitched, and now I'm the lead of that one. It's in pre-production, and let's see, in 2027 should be released, and we can talk more about all of that things, but maybe next person. Thanks.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Aki, and I was in UX before I was in games. That was 27 years ago. Yes, I am older than the internet. I received my education back when it was called usability and interface design and multimedia. Ooh, words you haven't heard in a decade at least. But then 7 years later, I got involved in games when I founded a company with a couple of university friends. And well, that was a small indie studio, and I got sidetracked by all these side quests like programming and production and art direction and trying to keep the company afloat and making coffee. But I also did design quite a few motion control games for the Kinect, so I had some UX stuff to do in the meantime. Then I had a burnout, took a bit of a sabbatical, did a lot of mentoring. Currently, I am mostly on the tech side at working at Scion Games, making games for health awareness, diagnosis, and therapy, improving people's health behaviors through the power of games. And my role is CTO, so I'm responsible for technological choices, but I also do a lot of non-game development work, which is like organizational development, improving processes, tools, and workflows, which is surprisingly a lot like UX. I'm applying all the same principles no matter what I do. It's the same thing, how to communicate to people, how to get people to understand what they need to do, and how to most efficiently help them do, what they need to do.
There we go. Oh, right, yeah. I feel a little bit intimidated by the panel here, but I'm trying my best. Hello, everyone. My name is Mikael Paananen. I've been in the game industry journey from 2015 onwards. Kind of like jumping from basically from nothing to basically having my own company back in Jyväskylä in 2016, and then trying to make mobile games with Unreal Engine. That was an interesting experience. I've done game design, level design, environmental 3D art, narrative design, a little bit of narrative design and content design, so pretty design based. But after, like, unfortunately due to Corona, our indie studio didn't survive that, so it was kind of like a little bit of on a limbo until I finally managed to land myself a job here in Helsinki at Frozen Byte as a game designer on the big Starbase project, which was a really interesting experience to kind of like getting to know, where I basically worked on a little bit more on the level design, designing new like PvE content, like concepting it, and then participating into the testing, kind of like these testing days. So my first experiences in testing side. But unfortunately, things didn't go as it was planned, and I again got thrown basically into a little bit of a limbo of what do I want to do, how until I managed to find myself kind of accidentally in QA. So I managed to land myself as a QA consultant in a company called Nextcon, where I'm currently working in. And after doing a little bit of like QA consulting, we did a interesting move of trying to get into games industry as a service provider, and that's kind of like what I've been doing. And I kind of accidentally became a QA evangelist in a way. I kind of fell in love of actually trying to help people to get into QA and also how QA is actually supposed to be done. And as we all know, QA is not for everyone, not just the person who wears the QA hat. So that's what I've been kind of trying to do. Also running the Finnish game industry QA meetup group. So trying to build a game QA related community here in Finland. And now these new crazy ideas with of a QA jam that we already had and planning on having a second one. So a little bit of this and that, not that like little bit of this and that, but not that much experience. So, but giving an interesting perspective of bringing kind of everything together, and now really thinking, nah, man, I've really done UX as well along the way, even though I didn't have the title for it. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you. The problem of only having 2 mics for 5 people. You already went to my next question on where did you encounter user experience and how does it show in your discipline? I can speak for as an artist. I started making items for a mobile game 2014 or 15. We all have extensive experience and we have been working on a bit of this and that over the years, which helps with creating better teams, better collaboration, better products. And for me, I started on creating those small items in games. It became collections of items like groups, and then it became the entire art pipeline. So I gradually moved from smaller to bigger entities, and now it's the user experience, which is the entire game itself. So if you would describe, you already described how you encountered user experience, but how does it show in your discipline? For art, it is that everything you see is user experience. But what about your disciplines?
Well, in marketing, from a marketing point of view, in my opinion, user experience is kind of like the whole journey that a person has with the game's brand. So it already starts way before the person even starts playing the game. It can start from, for example, just seeing a Instagram reel about the game and then continues throughout them playing the game, and then maybe even afterwards, if they become a fan of the game, they still continue to interact with the game's community or other content that exists outside of the game. So basically, it's kind of like how well the promise of the game matches with the reality of the game itself. So for example, if all the marketing videos or trailers of a game show, like from the videos, you get the feeling that the game is like a cozy game, and then when you actually start playing it, it's actually like a little stressful, maybe for some reason. Then that's like, in my opinion, like a marketing UX failure. So yeah, basically, it's like kind of like the reality versus the promise of the game versus the reality of the game. And it shows up in like so many ways in making videos, user experience, because like it's everything. Like if the person has a bad experience with the video, they're not gonna watch more than 1 second of it. So for example, with like short form video content like Reels and TikToks, it can be about how easy it is to follow, or how well can you figure out the context of the video without knowing anything about the game beforehand. And if there's captions, there's of course a lot of UX considerations that have to do with captions, and there should be captions in your videos, especially if they're like short form video content. And the trailers can act as kind of like an onboarding to the game itself. So if a good trailer can also like add to the overall UX of the game, because you already get the feeling of the mechanics and the flow of the game from the trailer itself. So yeah, it shows up in everything basically.
Yeah, maybe in a like a more practical perspective, how I mean, overall with the design process, I think so. Starting from the core, let's say you have a game concept, right? Like you say, hey, I think this would be really cool if we took this game with this game. Let's use an example just because it's fun. Let's say we take a crossword puzzle with, I don't know, fighting game. Like, let's see where that goes, right? Like you try to on that first, you have the seed of an idea, and I think this is the first test of the user experience. Can you communicate that idea to somebody? Like, that sounds like a crazy, I don't know. Let's see what it would be like, right? And then you use all these tools. So for me, at least, I'm very visual person. So then I put it on some mock-up. Okay, hey, what did crossword puzzle be like if there was, I don't know, you made a crossword or you made a right guess and then there was attack or damage. And then I would, model that out and then I would show it to somebody. I would go like, hey, what do you think about this? And I would get my first test like, and then you'd test like you'd see I often like to validate really early my ideas, so um there's crazy stuff that goes on in here, so I need to get it out and then I need to put it on paper and then put it in somebody as soon as I can, like even if it's messy, even if it's like not fully formulated, I just like to put it out and get somebody else to look at it because I might have an idea that, oh, this is really cool. But then if I don't get somebody else to look at it. And then along that journey, that iteration, that you continue to kind of get that idea and nurture it. I think, you start to go into bigger groups and try to find different avenues to test that idea, and then whether it's the actual Play-Doh. I think one thing that to note is about fidelity. So one learning that I found is that it's really, really difficult. Like you have a vision inside your head that you think how a game should be like, and then there's this imaginary vision of what the end product is going to be, and there's all of these like stopping points where you're trying to test to see something, then you develop it and you see where it's going, and you still have this vision, but it's there's so many points where you can be like, yeah, this there I'm getting really good feedback, but it's so far from the end product that you're like, is this valid? Like, is this true? Like this concept, this, let's say, crossword puzzle, this combat thing. And I found that to be one of the more challenging, like, puzzles within, and I think that's goes along with all the industries, that you can have all these steps to test the game, but then when you launch the game, it's like, well, actually nobody likes this game. And then even if you all of the tests up until that point get there. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that one in because it's been on my mind for a while. So hope that was interesting.
So you asked where I encounter UX in my work. I'm gonna start that off by like saying that programming like menus and interfaces is one of my favorite things to do because I love tweaking those little animations that even the most boring menus feel satisfying to use. But taking a step back from that, putting that in a broader context, it's all about like motivating the player to engage with the game, to reduce friction. Like you don't want the player to feel like, oh, I have to go through all these menus to accomplish what I want to do. And that in turn is actually a big part of what I do outside of development. When I try to create a workflow on how we move Trello cards, I also try to reduce friction. I also try to make it so that people on doing their project management tasks, it's like designing the DevOps automation, like how do I make it as easy as possible to download the latest build so people actually end up testing it instead of just saying, well, it was too difficult, I don't have time for that. So that's where I encounter UX in my work. Like it's all over the place. but at the same time, it's all connected.
For QA, like the overall, like I guess the core discipline of QA is risk management, and part of it that was already talked about, for example, in Sebastian case, was bringing up for example, the usability side, like testing different areas of the game. Are these ideas that have been brought forward clear enough? What's the first user experience in your game? Like they were talking about the tutorials. Like in my own experience, like one of the first things that I've, for example, in one game project was that I was basically asked to play through the tutorial and bring up all the points that you can think about it. So that was like starting point, because that's an extremely important thing when you're thinking about like from a QA standpoint. So how are you explaining all the mechanics? How are you explaining all the features to your player? Is there going to be a wall of text? Is that something that people actually read? No, probably not. Or can it be something that can be put inside the game, like naturally? Like from a QA standpoint, like everything needs to be, like everything should be tested. For example, like all the different interactions, like from a mechanical standpoint, and as well as kind of like an end user standpoint, because when you are like doing QA, you are basically having a hat. Basically, you're looking at it from a developer standpoint, but also from an end user standpoint, and trying to see that is, for example, things that were supposed to be designed clear. Are they good? Like in a way, are they good enough? Which is always a big thing to also think about. Like, but yeah, but again, like it was mentioned in the very beginning, like UX is not same as UI, but I also think that UIs are also something that is extremely important, and for user and for the players. Do they use? Is the UI clear to the players? Is it like, are the menus clear to the players? Are they easily readable? And that's also like part of QA as well, to make sure that everything, like, is everything clear enough from any user standpoint?
Thank you. And there were many problem or possible places where a player might encounter an issue. And I would like you to next describe me situations in your experience or in your field discipline where this can come up. In my experience, for example, it was an issue that there was this waterfall model, which means that something is developed and then it's given to the next team, and then in the end there is a user. There is no loop and no feedback really, which causes these issues, especially for the users, but also within the team, because there are these different teams within the bigger team that do not communicate, which easily creates issues. But what kind of issues have you encountered? And maybe there is a way that you think could be fixing the issue, or maybe you even did fix the issue. So issue and possible fix.
So one thing that comes to mind that I see, I feel like I see a lot especially when it comes to like smaller indie game dev teams, who of course they're like incredibly talented in making their game, but maybe they don't have the marketing know-how, because like a small team can't have everything, right? So it's understandable, but often I feel like when they're making this marketing content of their game, they're forgetting to keep in mind the actual target audience of the game. So, for example, there might be a person who's programmed this like amazing feature in their game that's like really difficult to program, and they're super proud of it, and of course they want to show it off. So they make a video about it and showcasing it in detail and using all these technical terms and like showing technical footage. And of course, like other game devs will be delighted to see it. But if your end goal is to get more wish lists, or I don't know, get people to purchase your game, probably, then it's extremely important to keep in mind that probably like a person from your target audience is just a regular person who doesn't know anything about game dev unless your game somehow is meant for just game developers. I don't know, but but yeah. So it's incredibly important to make sure that the context is like easily understandable to anyone watching the video, and like the feature that you're showcasing, the person who watches it actually understands why they should care about this feature and why does it make their experience in this game better. And yeah, and also like I feel like one thing that's like super important in every kind of marketing asset that you make of your game, you have to think about what is the reason why a person from your target audience would want to share this video or I don't know, picture or meme or whatever to their friends. And if you can't think of a reason why, then you probably need to like rethink the content of this marketing asset. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think I would actually like to piggyback off that because I think in game design, I think it's specifically nowadays when there's so much content and there's only going to be more content moving forward. And I think Sebastian, what you mentioned about this idea of novelty, this idea that the product that you're going to bring out there has something that is unique, stands out, especially for the target audience, of course. I mean, it could be somebody else who's like, oh, cool, I want to play that. But you should know the audience and say, like, I'm making this for them. And then there's something that is different. So I think often what I see is people making games for games they don't really understand. So they go, oh, I think I'll make a game, for this genre. They don't do enough research in that genre specifically to really understand, like, what is it that makes that game successful? I see it all the time, unfortunately. I've seen it even in leadership positions where they think they have a cool idea, like, I think we should do this, but they don't play the game. Like, they've never played any of the games in the genre, and so they can't maybe empathize with the experience, right? Like, can't put themselves in the shoes of that audience, so they can't make a game like that has a hook that speaks to the player of that base. And yeah, I think the game hook is when we do new concepts, when I'm making new concepts, that is the one thing that I'm searching for. Is like immediately, okay, here is this genre. What is something new that I can bring to it that they would understand? Something that's cool, unique, different, and we can go into like what that actually means. And I think it varies by every different genre. Like everyone has like a little bit different. Could be hybrid. So you take a genre from like one genre and then you take another and you mix them. It could be a theme, it could be art style, it could be a lot of different things, but something that makes it stand out. And I see that all the time. And I think it's because, as creatives, we love, I think when you're in love with your idea, it's hard. You have blinders on. You're like, I love this game so much. Don't tell me, no, it's amazing. Don't tell me all these things. And I think it's human nature, right? We love the things that we make. And I think that's what's so great about it. But it's also our downfall as well. So.
This example comes from around 15 years ago from my previous company, virtual air guitar company, where we were developing a motion game for the Kinect called Kung Fu. It's a game that takes your video image into the game world, and you can actually fight Kung Fu with real kicks and punches. Like, it has all the same problems as VR does today. So Reetu's talk about what was called infinite possibility space totally applies there as well. And it's like, suddenly you don't have a controller anymore. You don't have buttons. You can do anything. So what do you do? When you can do anything, you don't come up with anything. And it was a real challenge to us to try to come up with this, like trying to come up with the game mechanics for this. Like, how do we score the player? How do we put actual game elements in? And this was also a big challenge because, like, camera movement detection isn't super accurate. We don't actually always even are able to tell like your hand from your foot. So what we did was actually, we forgot about the technical constraints, and we just hid the fact that the accuracy isn't all that great. We instead relied on creating a fantasy for the player, that we made the player want to do the things that we want them to do. And as long as we recognized something along those lines, as long as it fulfilled the player fantasy, that was enough. So in the game, it doesn't matter if you hit the enemy with your hand or your foot or your butt. It still works. It's fun. And that's all it needs to be. So we're trying to think of it too mechanistically, trying to enumerate and analyze. But in the end, all we needed was like, does the player hit the enemy, yes or no? And we were able to build something on top of that instead. So yeah, sometimes UX can be about reducing technical complexity and hiding the fact that just sometimes the player just wants to do the thing, even if there is no mechanic for it.
Yeah, there was talk about the indie side of like I strongly believe that and I think that many might also strongly believe in this, that you are the worst person to actually test your own creation. So getting your game kind of out to others is really important, but there is also the risk that you might become a little bit too stubborn in a way, that even though you get that feedback from others, you don't want to make changes because you're strongly believing that no, the players are incorrect. And that was kind of like a little bit of my personal experience, or our personal experience back when we were indies, that obviously like becoming blind to your own making, like not seeing the problems that might arise. And I think that's pretty normal as well. Like, you really want to believe that what you're making is something that you're really passionate about, and that's like part of this industry. But I think that you should be able, even though it is really hard, to also take like kind of like step back, and from kind of like looking it from a developer's perspective back to kind of like taking a step back and ask yourself, is this something that you as a end user, as a player, if you would purchase this game, how would you feel about it? And that's kind of like the heart of QA, and that's usually comes from how we could have solved this problem, that I've kind of like tried to now later, like thinking back, would like just asking more questions, like when you're making choices, like the basic, like what the QA usually does is like asking questions. Hey, have you thought about this? Have you considered these risks that might arise from this new feature that we are bringing in? Do you think like something like, hey, is this like visually clear enough? Is this accessible for those who might have, for example, like color blindness or something like that? And these should be considered when creating like games. And I think that's really important part of UX as well. Like, there's somewhat like feeling like QA and UX has so much in common. Like, but yeah, I guess that's my rambling on this matter, like from a person.
It is very true. There is a lot of similarity and overlapping between these different disciplines. Surprising as it is, I enjoy hearing you talk, but we're ending soon. So I would like to, within these 10 last minutes, our tech fails us. But I would like to hear if you have tips for the people in the audience, also online, what to do regarding improving user experience. Like Seb previously, we would like to hear what you would. I would say also ask the players as early as possible. And when it comes to art, you have so many things to ask. Do they like the style? Do they actually care if you polish that last pixel? what is it that you would give as instructions for these people? And we don't need to go in a row if someone has but of course, if going in a row is good.
Yeah, we've been doing this, so why stop? So, well, from a marketing point of view, I feel like people should be less afraid to use their UX as a marketing point, because like there should be like there's this all these kinds of like incredible UX features that games have, but people are kind of still not really using them in marketing, in my opinion. And for many people, it might be the reason why they buy the game. Like if a certain UX feature exists in the game, then that's the reason they buy it, and they don't have to necessarily Google and figure out if does this game have easy mode or or captions or something, and or like start playing and then it's like a hidden thing somewhere that they only find out about after starting. So yeah, I think make more noise about these like incredible UX features that your games have, definitely. And like overall, I think successful UX from a marketing point of view is like this frictionless transition from a person seeing maybe just like a 15-second video on their phone of this game, and it's the first time they're seeing anything about this game, and they already can figure out from that 15 seconds the feel of the game and what the mechanics are, and they feel confident enough just from that to already wishlist the game or purchase it maybe or something like that. So yeah, definitely just make more noise of your UX features and be very like clear in your marketing. Yeah.
Cool. So there's a practice called pre-mortem. If you've heard of this, this is when you try to anticipate why your product is or game is going to fail. I've done this on a few different projects, early stages. I would definitely recommend this. Like I think if you have a solid concept, you know, you got your team excited and you're willing to invest some time into the project with, you know, 3 or 4 people, sit down and think about like why the project might fail. It will tell you so much about how the game is going to go, and it will give you really clear, like obviously you have your own bias about the project, right? Like you are not going to be able to pick up everything, but it will most likely surface the majority of things that you can then follow up on user research. You most of the time it's like, okay, well, this feature might be confusing, right? Like players are probably not going to understand this. You can usually just do a quick test with somebody and figure this out. That is one way. I think having some kind of continuous risk register. This is like a list of why the project is going to fail. It can be production related things. It can be, you know, business cost related things, design related things. So um, I think those tools that I've used have been incredibly informative and helpful to kind of guide, because I think you can test everything at any time, like in theory. But if you do this priority list of like, hey, I think this is the most important reason why the game is going to fail, then you're gonna spend all your energy, which is, you know, limited, on that thing. And I think that's maybe that's what I would encourage you all to do is prioritize. Like it's so important to do that. And then, you know, there's tips on prioritization, but, you know, pre-mortem, get that idea of what are those top things that why the game would fail, and then choose one and then double down on it and then solve it and then move on to the next one. Pre-mortem. Yeah, yeah. So usually there's a post-mortem when the game has already been killed. So then you try to anticipate why the game will be killed in the future.
Hopefully rescue it before that happens. One of my favorite pieces of advice is related to playtesting, which has been talked a lot about already in this event. Here's one thing that hasn't quite been touched upon yet, is that how to interpret player feedback. Because players are not game designers. This is a fact. You are a game designer, players are not. However, players are not stupid. So while players may not be able to design your game, they will absolutely point to you where the problems lie. They will not be able to articulate how the game should be fixed. If you take their word as facts, that usually leads to failure because players cannot imagine something that is too different from what they already see. So the important thing is to listen to the players' emotions when they talk about the game. Identify the problem fields, but then don't listen to their advice. Don't take their advice for granted, like word for word. Instead, try to look beyond those words. Okay, what is the thing that produced this response? There's a really great article about this, which I'm not going to summarize here, but you might want to take notes here. Google for Borderlands Truth Team. I'm going to repeat that, Borderlands Truth Team. It's a really good article that highlights what this actually means in practice. So you listen to the players, but don't take their words as canon.
It's really hard to come up with just one good tip, but what I would say, because I mentioned that you become blind to your own, like what you're creating. Normally, I would also recommend just, hey, put it out there because, well, everybody knows that. Just put that game out there. But I would say that you also, within the teams, can also become blind to what you're making. So what you should do is to dedicate some time, preferably each week, preferably each day, that you actually build the game, the current version that is like available, and you test it as a whole team. Get perspectives from everyone, because you also fall into the problem that you, one, play it in the editor itself, which is completely different than just building the game. And then, because sometimes there might be big teams where there are art that's a separate part, the design is a separate part, but so everybody just doing their own thing, but dedicate some time to have everyone gather around to play the game and gather feedback, because you never know, you might get the best feedback from the sound guy regarding some technical features. You might get some from animation like points from a coder person and stuff like that. So play test within house often as you can, but not too often.
Gotta develop the game as well, not just play it. Thank you, panelists. And thank you, audience, for listening to our program as well online.